Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 15 of Corporate Cardboard. So this is a board game variety show where we talk about all things board games, what we've been playing, our favorite mechanisms, favorite components, all this good stuff. And hopefully you can join us and join in the fun. I'm here, Dan, as always, and my co-host Mackenzie. So Mackenzie, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a great morning here in Colorado Springs.
Brilliant. And if you don't know, Mackenzie's got his own channel called Side Game LLC, and where he puts out great content, very informed input and output. Very educated Twitter, I should say. Okay, so let's get straight into the content with what we've been playing. So we're going to talk about a few games, what's been hitting the table since the last time we made a corporate cardboard episode. So Mackenzie, do you want to lead the charge and see what we've got?
Sure, sounds fantastic. So, the first game I want to talk about is an out of print game that I had the opportunity to play, and this is Glory to Rome. This is a card game that is made by Carl Chuddick, and his whole approach to this game is hey, let's try to do as much as we can with multi use cards. And I love it. This hits all of my brain spots in a fantastic way. It got a very clean system where on your turn you play a card, and that card is going to have a roll, and that roll is going to allow you to do one of six actions, and then you take that action. Everybody has the opportunity to follow your roll by playing an associated card with the same symbol. So very simple system. If you don't want to play a card, instead you can take what's called a think action. You can do this as the lead player or as a follower. So every turn you are doing something, even when it's not your turn. And I love this. The think action is really easy. You drop to your hand size, which is 5, or you get a wild, or you draw a single card from the top of the deck. And when you do that, you can actually go past your hand size. Now, this is such a cool system because whenever you play cards, after your actions are resolved, all the cards that all players have played go into the center of the table to form what's called the pool. And this pool says that, hey, these are the cards that can be grabbed and used as other things, such as resources or building materials, all sorts of things. So each card has 3 sections. It has the influence, or the amount of points it's worth. It has the roll card that it is, and then it has its building material. I guess it's got another section. And it's got the central part of the card, which is what it is when it's built. And this is so cool. I love the system here, and I love how simple the actions are. You can add cards that give you extra actions during rolls. That's what I forget what they are, but you have one that essentially adds extra actions when you follow or take a main action. You have some that let you build buildings, some that let you take resources from the center, and you also have this military leader where you can put him out and then demand specific resources. Now, I played the Cambridge edition, which is this one here, that has this really cartoony artwork, super goofy looking, but it works. Like the graphic design is actually appropriate for the information it's displaying. And I really became endeared to the artwork after playing it for a while. I liked it so much that I actually searched out and found a copy, but it's one that I'm really enjoying. And I'm happy that I had the opportunity to play it because I felt that I really needed to give it a try before I invested in something like this. So super excited to give this one a try. Dan, do you see yourself having any opportunity to play this, or does it sound like something you'd be interested in?
Certainly something I'll be interested in. Whether that opportunity is going to come, I very much doubt that. I don't know anybody else who owns this game, and I know it is like gold dust. But yeah, I think Carl Chaddick does the whole multi-use card thing really well, and I know this is kind of his granddaddy when it comes to that kind of thing. It's just a shame that it's so hard to get a hold of. But really glad to hear that you're liking it, and maybe that the hype is warranted. Is that the case?
I think the hype is pretty warranted. This is a game where you feel like you're doing so much all the time, and I love it. Like, if you're not doing stuff on the board, you're drawing cards and being able to plan stuff. You can dump multiple suits of the same type for wilds. And it has this great system where when you play powerful cards, they go in the center, and then all of your opponents kind of get first dibs at those when it comes to taking them as resources. And it's such a cool feeling. And then um, all the different abilities of the buildings that you build are going to completely change the game because everything has a different effect. And I just love this system. It just makes so much sense. And it's just one that I find myself coming back to. I'm super excited to play more. I just want to play it all the time. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean those mechanisms sound right up my alley as well. So yeah, would love to try it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, one day I'll be able to. But sticking on to kind of Grail games, this one again I want to talk about next was almost a Grail game to me. I couldn't get hold of this one for a long, long time. This is a game called Wallenstein or Wallenstein. I don't quite know the correct pronunciation, but this one is I describe it as almost like a war game slash Euro hybrid. as you have a big map of Germany in this case, or there is the kind of same Shogun, which is the more, I think it's the Japanese one. This one, you are basically trying to control regions by having cubes in those regions. But and it's kind of a game of conquest as you'd expect. You know, you're venturing into new regions, you're protecting your own. You got to be assured to protect your people, or sorry, feed your people, because every region you control requires grain, and to get that grain, you have to kind of like pillage the land, or I suppose farm the land, which can create these revolt markers. And the more you do that in the kind of more um, more the areas that produce more food, they can really kind of start to come back and bite you. So you've got to be very careful not to keep exploiting the same land over and over again, because you can end up fighting these kind of neutral cubes. But I love the way that you program everything in this game, because it does have a strong element of programming in it, where all your cards that you collect throughout the game, which are basically all the different locations, you're going to be putting them on your individual player board, and that is going to associate to a certain action, which can be, as I said, take the crops from that land. You can be taxing that land to get money. You can be using it as a kind of a starting point to venture into new lands and try and fight them, or and maybe bolstering troops and stuff like that. So you've got all the kind of things you do, but as I said, it's all done on this player board here, where you are secretly and simultaneously putting these cards face down on these different actions, and then flipping them all over and then resolving them. And that the player order is so important as well, because these are all resolved in different turn order each time, but you kind of know the order they're going to get resolved in, but some of those cards are put face down, so you don't know completely. There's a lot going on here. And I suppose I should talk about how the combat is resolved with the cube tower. So the game does come with a cube tower, and the attacker and the defender are going to chuck all the cubes into the cube tower, and they're basically going to pair off against each other and cancel each other out. And the last man standing is going to be who's going to stay strong in that region. The game is really different. I said it really does kind of strike that war thing with the Euro thing as well. Some good control, but still just enough kind of wildness to keep it interesting. I was really impressed with this one. A lot of fun, and a lot of kind of fallout and layers to the order and way things are going to get resolved. So yeah, really enjoyed it. That's Wallenstein. Were you aware of this one, Mackenzie, or did you have any interest in this one?
I am aware of this one. So I actually played Shogun. That was one of my first games into like the foray of just modern board gaming in general. I played a lot of that when I had started playing things like Scythe and Mechs vs. Minions. And so honestly, it's one that I kind of just played to play because I was just trying to get the idea of some mechanisms. But to me, it didn't really stand out to me, which is kind of funny because it was like my first style of game, but it's not one that I really wanted to go back to. It may be different now because I have probably a better appreciation of things like this. But coming so late into your gaming career, what were your overall impressions of this one? Is this one that you think you're going to come back to? What do you think?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, maybe it's not going to be one of the games that I'm going to get to table that regular, because I think it requires a certain mindset, maybe because it is a bit it's a bit more confrontational than a lot of games I normally play. But I think that cube tower really does kind of take the edges off things and make it a bit more fun. But yeah, I mean, if I ever have 4, 5 players and we want a bit more longer epic experience, then yeah, I'm going to keep Wallenstein around, and it's staying on my shelf. So yeah, I'm happy with it.
Fantastic. So I really like cube towers in games if they're used well. And I do remember really liking that system here. Sometimes it's used as just like simply a randomizer as opposed to actually impacting actual results, which I think is kind of a miss. I think you could use something else in that case.
Yeah, and I think it does a good job of, like, if things aren't going completely your way, at least you know you've got your cubes in that tower that are probably going to come back and help you later. So it does kind of have kind of a almost like a leveling mechanism where it's probably going to balance out long term, but not precisely.
Exactly.
Okay, what's next?
All right. So the next game that I've been playing a lot of recently is Corrosion, a new Capstone Games, I guess, game that's all about engine building. The whole thing about this game is it's about doing main actions and creating temporary resources, whether they be the engines that you're building or the different resources that you're creating. You're going to be taking these resources and making all of these nice chrome machines, which, unlike everything else, do not corrode and are going to give you some special abilities. The game flow is actually very similar to Glory to Rome, I guess. On your turn, you either play a card and everyone else has the opportunity to follow, and you perform some sort of action, or you are going to take a turn where you're actually going to turn your wheel and trigger everything around your board. Now, this game has a lot going on with it. Now, the first thing is that it's a huge market style game where there's all these choices out on the board. When you take your turn, you'll have a lot of things to pick from, whether it be machines that will activate every time you turn your wheel, or if it's cards that you could add to your hand to take better actions in the future, or those chrome machines that I talked about earlier that are kind of your main way to gain points. There's also these really interesting one-shot machines that are these little squares, and you can grab those, and they're kind of like small timers. After 3 rotations, they'll explode unless you've completed their condition. So you're kind of putting yourself on a timer every time you do something. Now, there are some really cool things about this game, particularly the system itself. I love that small engine building, trying to eke out value every turn, but it's also such a weirdly paced game. I recently did a kind of like a mini review on this, and my biggest criticism is the way it feels like you are not doing a lot, but the game takes a long time. It's such a weird concept because on your turn you're doing one thing, right? You're either turning your wheel or you're playing a card, and that's it. But I don't know why, but it just takes a long time. It's so weird. The pacing is all out of funk, and the following in this game is also extremely weird because you need to follow to stay competitive and do actions. Because when you play a card based on the value of that card, um, if somebody has a higher value, they can discard it to copy that action. But whatever the value of the card is, that's how many wheel turns you're going to have to do to actually get it back in your hand. So if I play a 4, it's a really good action, but that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 away. And so I'll have to spend 4 turns to turn my wheel to actually reclaim it. But that feels kind of bad because you want to be doing other stuff, right? And you don't want to just be turning your wheel just to get a card back. And then if you are following with a really powerful card, it's also gone forever and you didn't get to use it for the effect that you were planning on using it for anyway. So it's just such a weird system. And I don't know how I feel about this one. Is I feel like I'm constantly trying to do something and be efficient, but to like no avail. It's so weird. It kind of pulls the rug on like what you would normally think about efficiency puzzles. And I like that it does change kind of the way you think about things, but it also makes me a little uncomfortable, and I don't know how I feel about that. But I think it's a very interesting game. I think the solo is really well done. They take all of the other players' starter decks, shuffle them up, and it makes this really nice AI deck. You can go through it a couple of times, but I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't really like it at higher player counts. I think 2 is probably my favorite for this game because it's back and forth, and because those turns are kind of awkward, it's nice to have consistent turns flowing. So I don't know. Is this one that you've been seeing, you've been interested in? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm super keen to try this one because on paper it sounds like it's right up my alley. I think it's just about being delivered to the retailers in UK, so probably get to play this one relatively soon. But I want to try it. Kind of apprehensive after what you've said, but you know, I want to try it regardless because it does again sound like everything I like. But I suppose that kind of niggles that you mentioned are probably things you have to experience yourself, I suppose.
It's so
But
weird because you're totally right. It looks so clean on paper. It's like, oh, you do this
yeah,
thing, it resolves. Nice. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I think you'll need to play this one. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
okay. Well, it's only one that's on my radar. Yeah, quite keen to check it out. Um, so it's here. So Jiri says, oh, sorry, I've gone very slow. Greetings from the Czech Republic. Thanks for joining us, Jiri. If that's how you pronounce your name, apologies if I've butchered that. And another comment here, LZ13 says, have you tried the new Feld game, Marrakesh, which uses a cube tower, and there's a mod on Tabletop Simulator to try. No, I haven't tried I haven't tried it yet, but I have got it on pre-order from Kickstarter, LZ, and so yeah, I don't tend to play anything on Tabletop Simulator, so it's just a matter of waiting to play the physical copy for me. But very aware of it. Love Steffeld, love Cube Towers. So yeah. What about you, Mackenzie? You keen to try that one?
I am keen to try it, but very similar to you, I don't really play Tabletop Simulator. I have thousands of games here that we can play in person, so I don't feel the need to use it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, moving on then. So the next game I want to talk about is a game that I didn't really know much about. I'd rather pick this one up and brought it home. This is a game called Docmus. Docmus is actually surprisingly good, and I wasn't really sure what to expect for this one. This is a kind of a route building style game. One of those ones where you are kind of just continuing where you've already placed one of your markers, and you're kind of expanding out. However, this one kind of takes that whole movement or the way you chain things together to a whole new level because the board state modular, and it's made up of, I think it's 8 different tiles. So there's always like it's like a 3x3 grid, but with one hole in it, and you're basically shifting it around, and you can either kind of like rotate them or kind of fill up the empty gap, or I think you can rotate them 90 degrees. So you can end up chaining things and kind of in a way you would start on a one continuous chain, you could kind of suddenly pop up somewhere else, and you're trying to get next to all these different shrines to get points in different ways. And the way that you take these powers in which you manipulate the board state is all based on a draft. So you have like, I think it's 4 or 5 different god powers, and then in turn order you're just drafting the one you want and then resolving them, and then just continuing building your chain. Some of the different terrains here as well, is you've got like mountains and trees. They like take more of your pawns or more of your pieces to get through them, so it kind of slows you down a bit. However, you are compensated for doing that, because every kind of piece you sacrifice by going through that terrain is put in a separate different pile, which can give you more points at the end of the game. That's pretty much all there is to the game. So it's very, very kind of rings true to games like Through the Desert, again Babylonia, Blue Lagoon, all these kind of classic Knizia games. But this one is not a Knizia game, but certainly feels like it, but with that more dynamic board state. And that's pretty much all there is to the game, but it works remarkably smoothly. The draft kind of synergizes with the gameplay really well. And yeah, it's just a really solid game that nobody talks about. And it's staying in my collection for some time to come, and I'll certainly be willing to try it more and more, because it's a hell of a lot of fun. Have you heard of it, Mackenzie?
Nope, not at all. But it does, just the way you described it, sounds extremely smooth. It reminds me a lot of games like just like a bunch of train games, if we're being honest. That's what this reminds me of just constantly putting out things and having to go over the different types of difficult terrain. I like that system of getting something by sacrificing pieces too. That's neat. And I think drafting for games like this is awesome, because it allows you to set up that plan, and then when it actually gets to putting those pieces out, just super clean, because you've got your plan already based on the cards you drafted. I like it. Sounds cool.
Absolutely, yeah, very clean, very, very smooth. Yeah, no fat whatsoever. But yeah, really enjoyed that one, and I think it should be more popular. So yeah, that is Docmus, that one. So what's your final game then, Mackenzie?
So the final game that I wanted to talk about that I actually forgot to talk about last Corporate Cardboard, this is Golem. So Golem was my most hyped, anticipated Essen release. Luckily, a friend of mine went to Essen, picked up a bunch of games for us, and this is one that he kept for himself, which totally understand. This is a fantastic one. This is a really interesting engine building game. So the way it works is you have these 3 areas in front of you, and each of these areas has its own mini game that you're playing. The first area is the titular golem. This allows you to upgrade your golems that are on the board. Now, the way the board works is you have all of these golems in these different rows, and these rows are essentially streets. And so the golems are running around the streets, and it's up to you to send your little priest dudes to control the golems. However, the further the golems get, the stronger actions they have at their disposal. And I think that's really neat, because it's good to have them super far away for those powerful actions, but if they're too far away, it's going to be hard to tame them and make sure there's no collateral damage. So a lot of this game is mitigating the damage that your golems can cause, and you actually do that through destroying your golems, which is kind of backwards to me, because this game is about wanting to get golems on the board, but you're doing so much all the time to have them destroyed, because you've got to manage this. This is a game where at the very beginning of the game, resources are extremely tight. You have to really plan your first 2 rounds, I would say. So there's going to be a bit of AP to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible, because in addition to having the resources to activate your different actions, you're also going to have to prepare for these end of the round contracts. We'll talk more about that in a second, but that's the golem section. Get people on the board, and then you trigger wherever those golems are. Now, the section on the right is an income board, and the more of this gold resource that you obtain, the more of this income that you can unlock. And that one's pretty straightforward. And the last one is the blue section on the left, and this section here is a track that's going to give you more income on this specific blue resource, and that resource is going to let you control your golems and make sure they're not going crazy. And lastly, it's going to let you buy these book cards, and these book cards are interesting. The more book columns you have, the more points you get at the end of the game. But if you continuously play books on the same column, you trigger all of the effects of the cards in that column. And I believe this is borrowed from Lorenzo the Magnifico, if I'm not mistaken. I have not played that game, but I've heard that that is a mechanism that is similar here. So that's really the main things of this game. But the action selection system is all based on these marbles. So there's this marble counter that you drop them in, you roll them out, and you're picking one of these marbles in order to trigger the associated action. Now, the color of the marble actually doesn't matter for the action. The color is based on a contract at the end. So there's this card that says, hey, if you have these two colored marbles, you can swap them and you get whatever this is. Actually, that's not true. I think the color actually gives you resources as well. So super cool. You're trying to get those things, but there's also, based on the number of marbles in a specific action section, that's like a multiplier for the type of resource you get. So it's a really weird system here because I don't think it needed to be marbles, but it also makes sense that they're marbles because instead of taking an action on your turn, you can pass and take all the marbles and reshuffle them. So you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to get the action after a while, but you're also guaranteeing that it's weaker because every time you do that reshuffle, you remove a marble. So it's kind of interesting because you have choices to mitigate the luck, but you're also going to be weakening your action in the process and giving all the other players that opportunity first. So do you take this strong action immediately or do you wait on it? So this game has a lot going for it, but I do think that early game is so crucial that I do think that it's going to be very prone to AP. But that late game, you're just doing so much. You feel like you're running through the streets with your golems and getting all these bonuses, and oh, it's insane. Some of the action spaces, the action board is randomized every game, and so there'll be really strong, unique actions later. And once you start triggering those, you just it's kind of nuts. You feel like you're broken as heck. It's really satisfying. So early game is a little crunchy, but later you feel very free just because of all of these resources and things that you have to access to. So one that I had a lot of fun with and one that I'm really excited to play some more of. That's Golem. Are you still super hyped for this one? Is this one that you know of? When is it coming to UK?
I don't think there's any time frame yet, but yeah, this was right at the top of my most anticipated games of the year. At all. I'm pretty confident I'm going to have it. Again, it sounds like it's got a lot of the mechanisms there you described are from Grand Austria Hotel. I love that drafting system, but it uses dice instead of marbles. And yeah, I think the designers are just amazing. So I'm very surprised. It's when they put out games of this complexity weights, I just tend to love them. So maybe that's going to hurt it because I am thinking so highly of it, but we see. I've not really been disappointed by them in the past, so yeah, can't wait to try it, and hopefully
And I
it
was
won't
really
take too
surprised
longer.
I was really surprised how easy it was to learn. Like it was not difficult. All of these things kind of seemed familiar, but different takes on them. And I thought that was cool because you had this new system that you could explore, but that wasn't super overwhelming with the overhead, which is nice. There is like an appendix of all the abilities, but after reading it a couple times, it's like most of those games that have effects. You start to understand that iconography and language. So it's cool. I really like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's good to hear because that was one of my kind of sticking points. Really thinking, is this going to be a bit too much? Because I heard some people say it was really quite involved, but you're saying the contrary, which is quite reassuring. Okay, so the final game that I've been playing is something a bit different with a game called Curious Cargo. So I've been playing quite a lot of two-player games recently, and this one is I've only played this one time. I've got a kind of initial rating of a 6.5 here. I'm not quite sure what I think of it yet. Is it going to go up or is it going to go a bit down? I'm not quite sure. But this is again a strictly two-player game, and as you can see here from the weight, it's a 3.25. So it's quite an involved game, which normally you don't see two-player games be quite that involved. This one is, I suppose you could call it abstract. It's a kind of a puzzly style game as you're trying to connect these machines to the edges of your board using these really interesting tiles with these different pipework on them, and you're trying to basically connect these like red pipes or blue pipes to either the left side or the right side of your board. And when it's on the left side of your board, it's basically your export goods, and when it's the right side of your board, it's input goods. But I think they've kind of set it up slightly incorrectly here, where you're supposed to basically touch side to side. So my board would be going directly onto my opponent's board,
Hmm.
And that's important because when they start sending these trucks up the side, if you've ever got a completed pipe of all one color from these machines to there, then you're going to take one of these kind of resources from your player board and load it onto that particular lorry or truck. But when it comes to the other way, you are basically taking their resources and putting it into your receiving bay here, and that's going to get you points. It's going to get you bonuses, and that's basically how the game works. You're just trying to get rid of your goods and trying to receive goods as well by lining up these pipes. You can overlap them. So if you've got a truck sat there and it's not quite sitting right, and you might need to kind of divert one of these pipes to fit into an empty spot, because some of these trucks have basically blank spots on them where you can't actually put anything. And yeah, it's a really weird game. I think the game does get better as the game goes on, because when I first started going through the motions and trying to build this pipe work, it can be quite frustrating, because again these pipes are so wild and they're all over the place, and when you're trying to fix one pipe, it feels like you're ruining the next one. So it does feel like a bit of a grind at times. It can feel like work at times, and again that frustration does come through. But once you've got a semi-decent network built up, then you kind of got to change your mindset, thinking, you know what, nothing here is concrete, nothing here is stable. It's all dynamic. You want to keep adapting to the current board state. But in terms of being different and unique and I quite like it, I think it's pretty fantastic. The design is good. The rule book is atrocious. One of the worst rule books I've ever seen, to be honest. It just assumes you know things. Not very well thought out, not very well explained. But the actual simplicity of the game is great. All you're doing is drawing tiles, placing tiles, and then it goes to a second phase where you can either kind of again put these lorries in the on the board, or trade resources for other resources and things. But yeah, I like it. I'm not sure if I love it. I appreciate it, but again, is it too much work? And that's my kind of thoughts this time. Bearing in mind I've only played it once. A really strange game to put my thumb on, and how to articulate my thoughts on it. But I certainly appreciate trying to be different, and it certainly feels different. Any initial thoughts on this one? Because are you interested or not?
I am interested, but I think I'd like to play Pipeline first. Have you played Pipeline, the one that this is kind of based off of?
I haven't played Pipeline. No, this is the one I've played.
Okay, so this is like that. It's supposed to be like the two-player version of that game, but I still haven't played that one, and so I think I'd like to dig my teeth more into that. I don't play two-player games as often as I'd like, so I think that this is probably not one that I will get, especially if you're saying it's kind of funky and weird, and it's not one that you love, because I think that that two-player spot is very high regard for me. It's got to be absolutely incredible if I'm going to do something at two-player only.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I can see this going one or two ways. I can see it maybe thinking, it is too much work. It's not going to get to the table, or I think the more you play it, the more you're going to start to appreciate it and see
Mhm.
how the game feels. Because again, I think that jarring point was when I got to the table. This isn't what I was expecting, and now I know what to expect. It might
Mm.
maybe feel a bit smoother. It might feel like I'm expecting what the game's trying to be. But it's a good game. I can't criticize the design. It's just, is it too much work? That's my
Now, is the tile drawing like too much of a luck factor for you, or do you have like time to plan with those tiles? Is there too much variance in the tiles? How does the tile system work?
So you are drawing blindly from a bag.
Okay.
However, you, you can kind of put them in a storage area, or in fact, you're forced to put them in a storage area, which gives you can build up a bit of a stock supply, and you can always kind of, the more you collect, the more freedom you have.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of, I don't think it hurts the game, because it is a kind of it's a bit of a wacky game in itself. All the pipes are crossing over. It's supposed to be like that. Whether if it was a bit more rigid, and maybe I don't know, maybe you could do a variant where you've got three tiles available or something. I don't know, and you can pick which one you want. I don't think that'd be too hard to do that. But yeah, I don't think the randomness hurt it as much as I thought it would. Because I'd heard that some people didn't like the randomness, but it was okay. But yeah, sometimes you get a tile that just doesn't fit in your board, and that's just the way it is, I suppose.
I think you described it well with that stockpile where you can kind of plan and use that randomness later, which is nice.
Yeah, but we're very limited control, because you only have two. You have two
Ah.
piles, but you can only pick the ones on top of those piles, so you can't go
Oh,
digging
interesting.
underneath.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
but you can use it. You can kind of put things in certain orders, so you want this one, so I'll leave it on top,
Hmm.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's it, really. Need to play it more. I need to play it more. I think that's what my my thoughts are. But interesting game. Interesting game. Okay, let's move on. So, next segment, crowdfunding. So, as usual, as you'd expect from myself, no crowdfunding picks from me. However, Mackenzie, I see you've got one on here.
Yes, yes.
What are you interested in playing? Or
So this one here is the third in a trilogy of games. This is what's called Call of Kilforth. This is by All or Nothing Studios production. This is a exploration and adventure style game. Now, the system comes from Gloom of Kilforth and Shadows of Kilforth. So this one has you going out into the sea, into the ocean. You've heard the call of Kilforth. So you're out adventuring. So right off the bat, I love the theme here. I love the idea of sailing around in this system. And the game system itself is it's an adventure system. On your turn, you're going to be using your action points to move around, interact with characters on the board. It is exactly what you'd expect from one of these games, except it's contained into a scenario. And it's a very modular system. When you set up the game, you'll pick a villain that you're going after. You'll set up like a quest deck for that villain. And then the land itself is going to be consumed by darkness. So every round, one of the land tiles on this board here is going to be flipped face down. And the game is over when all those are flipped face down. So you have a timer, which is nice. And then as you play, you're going to be leveling up your character, collecting items, and building towards that final fight. Now, this game, I rate a 7. I think the standard one is fine. It did improve with the Shadows of Kilforth. I think that one is much better. It has a lot more interesting variety and changes to the characters. And so I believe that this is probably going to go in that same direction, where they're able to take that core system, but make it more exciting and introduce more mechanisms that are going to make it a bit more lively. And I'm thrilled because I love this theming. I think that being a pirate sounds just so fun. And the level up system here is a lot of fun. You have all these skill cards that you'll be getting. The interactions, the encounters on the board are fun. And I'm excited to see what they do with the new treasures, with the new characters, your new plots. It's very much a storytelling game as you go through your plot, but it's abstracted into dice rolling, skill checks, and random draw pools, which I think are great for a one-shot scenario game. It works really well, and it's one that I am enjoying. This also comes with miniatures and all sorts of other things to kind of bolster your older collections. I like this style. I like the artwork here. I think that this is just a great adventure game, and it has a very simple system of resolving actions and taking your turn. So it's one that a lot of people can get into pretty easy. So that's Call of Kilforth. Excited for this one.
okay, cool. And is there a kind of an overarching campaign, or is it just those single scenarios you play each
It's
time?
a single scenario, which is nice. I do like big campaign games, but I think I prefer the scenario based because you can get in there, have a great experience, and if you want to play again, there's nothing tying you to using the same characters. So my favorite thing in these adventure games are switching up the characters because you get to try new abilities and you get to play in the system. So sometimes when I get campaign games, I'll actually I'll like record all the bonuses that I get. That way, after like, mission 1 or mission 2, I can switch characters and completely start over and then pick my skill trees. And that way I'm getting to play all the characters that came in the box, but I don't have to play like 14 whole campaigns and see that development each time I play through an entire campaign, which kind of is like cheating, but it works really well. That way I'm just able to try so many different ranges of characters. It's neat.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, no crowdfunding and pick from myself. I'm just going to go some comments here from Fatal Paper Cut. Thanks for joining us. He's saying, "Hey, fellas, he's got Uprising and Euthia in. Don't know much about those games, but he's meant here about Euthia. Sorry, my laptop is playing a bit. He said Euthia seems awesome. The box seems abnormal actually once you get everything punched out. I get the legendary box with the storage, so I'm using a box, a 90% empty box. Okay, no worries at all. Do you know much about that about that game?
So
Euthia, the big adventure exploring game.
Euthia is more in the line of Mage Knight than it is something like Gloom or Call of Kilforth. So it's very much a huge puzzle system with a lot of exploration and freedom. So it does sound really cool. Not one that I jumped into. Honestly, it looked a little daunting, and it didn't look like it was repeating a lot of the mechanisms from Mage Knight. So I felt that I would see how people react to it at first. And if it was something that was awesome, then I would check it out then.
Cool. All right, moving on. So we're going to move on from crowdfunding to a news segment. So I got a very minor bit of news myself, and Mackenzie wants to touch on something. So I just want to say that there's going to be a new edition of Ra coming out. So Ra, classic Reiner Knizia auction game. I always kind of knew this was coming. I just didn't know when. And this one has artwork by Ian O'Toole doing it. I think it's being published by 25th Century Games. So this has always been a game that I recommend. Really enjoy this game. Um, but whenever I recommended it, people would always moan at me that saying it's out of print. Where can they get it? So it's nice to see that it is coming out now. I didn't actually. Oh, here we go. This I think is that the new board? I think it might be. But yeah, Ian O'Toole artwork looks nice and yeah, looks nice and kind of slick. I quite like the way the board looks. I'm not sure if it's quite, or the cover is quite as, I don't know. It looks a bit too modern for me. I think maybe the cover. What do you think of that cover, Mackenzie?
I think it looks fine. I think it looks like a really nice take. I really like Ian O'Toole's style. Ra's one I actually haven't played. There's a huge oversight on me, so I need to get this one played. Yeah, I'm excited to give it a try.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a classic game. It's always been in print since about the year 2000. So I mean, I've been around a long time, and it's going to keep going on. So if you after Ra, you can't get your hands on it. It will be coming out, and hopefully it'll be more widely available. Okay, so Mackenzie, what do you want to talk about?
So I want to talk about this really cool series that most people I think know about already, but this is the BGG Artist series. So this is a series of redone covers for different games by different artists in the industry. Now this newest one here is it's so cool. I love it. It is Mr. Cuddington's take on the art for Quacks of Quedlinburg, and it looks incredible. So they've done this for games like Great Western Trail, Feast for Odin, not updating, but taking new approaches to the artwork. And I love it. There was even a really cool one by Kyle Farron who did one for Dominion. Oh my gosh, they just look amazing. So I just wanted to let you know that this exists. So if you're interested in this amazing board game artwork and you're looking to support artists in the industry, I think these are really fantastic. And this is series 3, I believe now. So there's already a huge collection of these artworks that you can take a look at. So really enjoy these. If you have any interest in these, go take a look. I mean, let's take a look at this thing here. Dan, do you appreciate this? Do you have any large board game artwork in your house? Is this something that you would put in your game room?
I don't have any of them, but or have any artwork relating to board games. If I found the right one, yeah, I'd certainly give it a look. I know it's quite a good variation here, and it all looks really, yeah, I really like it. It's really good artwork. So and they're all very different styles as well. So you've got like the kind of comic book style, or you've got like posters. I love the Castles of Burgundy one. It's more like a kind of a like a brochure poster. I really like it. Yeah, so really creative. Yeah. Which one's your favorite?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I actually really like the Dominion one. I just really like Kyle Farron's art. This new Quacks of Quedlinburg one, though, if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, it's really good. It's actually my phone background
Oh,
right now. I really like this one. It's so nice.
yeah,
So big fan. Me personally, unfortunately, I don't think I'd ever get one of these for my gaming room. The walls in the room that I game in are literally covered in games, so it's not going to happen. The biggest picture that we have on the wall is we have a framed copy of Macro Micro Crime City on the wall, and so that's really sweet. But that's a game on the wall as opposed to just artwork. So when it comes to putting things on the wall, it's more function over anything else.
yeah, yeah. I'm not far off that, but hey, one day when you have a massive you room, board game room, then
If that's the case, you
maybe
just get another shelf, man.
that's true. That is true. Okay, so there we go. So 2 bits of news there. New edition of Ra and the BGG artist series. So some really nice artwork if you want to get your hands to decorate your gaming wall. Okay, so moving on to and component appreciation. So Mackenzie, what have you got for us on this episode?
All right, so this card is so funny. If you're familiar with Marvel Legendary, there's a mechanism in the game where you rescue bystanders. So you rescue these people, which is fantastic, right? You score extra points for doing so. But some of these bystanders in the deck are special bystanders, and they're going to do something when they hit the board. And this one in particular gets my wife so angry whenever she sees it. And it cracks me up because sometimes when she's shuffling the deck, she'll like purposefully put them on the bottom so she doesn't have to see them. Or if she draws them, she'll throw them across the room. It is so funny. It cracks me up so much, and I love it. Just any reaction is it's hilarious. And that card is going to be the shape-shifted copycat. Now, its effect is really straightforward and simple. What it does is instead of rescuing it, it's actually a villain. It pops into the city instead, and it becomes a character that you're going to have to fight. And this is so funny because it happens. It's like the law of board games where if it's going to happen, it's going to happen at the worst time. Maybe she's really counting on getting a bystander for something, or maybe it's going to summon to the city and this is going to push out a villain and it's going to escape and something bad will happen. It never fails. This card just loves us. It always shows up, and it's so funny because as soon as you see the card artwork, it's just instant rage, and it cracks me up. So it's endearing. It's very tongue in cheek. It just really reminds me whenever I see this card. Just makes me think of my wife and her over the top reaction whenever we play Legendary. Legendary is one we get tabled a lot, so it's just hilarious that this one just always seems to find its way into our games. So I love it.
Yeah, that card there is definitely one of the. I think despite it's definitely one of the better the bystanders, or what I call them, civilians. Because I know the more and more the legendary expansions are coming out, there were some really obscure, like what do you call them, like bystanders, like the most obscure kind of member of society you'd imagine, and they're somewhere in that deck. But that was I thought the shapeshifter was a really good one. Yeah.
What you got, Dan?
Okay, so the game, well, the mechanism in particular I wanted to talk about was from a game I actually played only for the first time yesterday. This is a game called Kodachi, and this is a very simple, basically a push your luck / deck building game, but it has this kind of samurai ninja style vibe or feel to it, or theme to it, as you are trying to basically reveal a card, which is going to be like an enemy, and then you are going to, with the cards in your hand, you're trying to either overcome these enemies with strength by going higher than the number on that card and playing a card going higher than it, or you can go stealth and keep going under that value. However, once you lock into one of those strategies, going higher or lower, then you're basically locked into it. However, there is a card in the game, and I don't think it's got a particular name or anything, which lets you train or change that strategy halfway through. So if you say you've got a bunch of ones in your hand, which is obviously really good to go low, or a bunch of say fives, once you've got past the high enemies, you might be able to change your strategy on a dime and start going lower than that, which again normally you wouldn't be able to do, and that kind of really lets you push further and further to get through past loads of enemies, because the more enemies you go past, the more rewards and cards you get to take, and that kind of gives you new cards to your deck to overcome more enemies. So I don't think it has any particular terminology, but I just love that flexibility of that card. And I don't think I actually have the artwork here, but it's you can probably imagine what it does. But yeah, normally you're locked into one of the two, but this one lets you change your path halfway through, which is a really cool thing, and lets you push further and further and further, and hopefully get a whole bunch of cards as a reward. So yeah, that's the changing strategy, I suppose you can call it, card from Kodachi.
Awesome. I've never heard about this one. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting little game. Yeah, but not the best push your luck game out there, but it merges the whole deck building thing with the push your luck quite well, I think. So yeah, and that was probably one of my favorite cards from the game. Okay, so we are going to move on to this or that. So this is a segment where we talk about two polarizing things or two similar things, and we compare them against each other and put the vote to you guys to see what your favorite of the two is, or what your choice of the two, or sometimes more than two things are. So what was the question on the last episode, Mackenzie?
So this one is a huge controversial question. This is apps in board games or no apps in board games. And we went over our choices last time. If you want to rehash those, what were your thoughts last time, Dan?
So if I had to choose between the two, obviously there's a grey area in reality, but I'd went for no. I believe I'm perfectly happy with no apps in board games. It makes no difference to me.
Gotcha. And I'm very much the same way. If I had to choose between those, definitely no apps. I prefer having something that I can have there, physically touch and interact with. It's good. I find that sometimes when apps are involved, that's really where my focus is, and I feel that I'm kind of being pulled out of the game, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what did your subscribers have to say?
All right, so we had 107 votes here, and we had overwhelmingly support for no apps. We had 91% for the no
Oh
apps,
wow.
with 9% for app driven. Now, we did have some interesting comments here. Tim is Average, one of our regulars. Good to see you here, Tim. He had a comment that says, it's a tough one because there's not really a need for it in every game. And I got to agree with him here because not every game is going to require an app, but he says that if a game does require an app, then he would say yes to apps. And so he put his vote for yes, because games like Mansions of Madness, Unlock, they really do use apps well. And I can totally see that. Alchemists, things like Awkward Guests, including that app, makes so that game really breathes and can accommodate more people, makes it the no player elimination. So I really like that. Some apps really do incorporate the that idea well. There's some really good stuff happening there. So yeah, I definitely see your opinion here, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, I think we're all in that camp of yeah,
Yeah.
if the game needs it, we're more than happy to accommodate it. But I know a lot of people are a bit more hardline with it. They're like, no, absolutely not. I'm not having an app in my games. Which, to be honest, I don't really understand if there's no negatives to it at all. But I don't know, each to their own. But yeah, again, if I had to choose between the two, I'd go no. But I'm always open to games using it right and not being the main feature of the game. I think
Yeah.
is the big thing for me.
The one of the games that came out this year, Descent: Legends in the Dark, I'll be honest, the app is really what kept me from getting that game and giving it a try, because I had played a lot of the other Final Fantasy games that incorporate the app, and I just was not impressed. It was not something that I enjoyed because I felt like I was just managing everything on the computer and I didn't really need the board. It felt like I was just doing something futile. It reminded me a lot of Destiny's solo mode, where you don't really even need the board to play. You're just touching the app the whole time. And it didn't really enjoy that. It wasn't something that I liked. And this is exactly what that looked like as well, where I could you literally just play the game on the computer and roll the dice. And so it didn't seem like something that I was interested in. So that is, it kept me from playing a very well received game from a lot of people, which is unfortunate. So I do hope to try games like this, but I think with most app games, I'm going to try to play them at other people's venues and try to get my hand on that there first, just before we bring them into our library, because they are. I honestly think that it's definitely a stigma that I have against these. So I have that inherent bias.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Okay, so next question for the next episode, we are going to put two very popular games head to head against each other. So one games that we've actually discussed at length on Corporate Cardboard before. So we are going to do a this or that, comparing or contrasting, I suppose, the Gaia Project to Terra Mystica. So two very similar games. One taking the more sci-fi approach to things, one taking the more fantasy approach to things. I've only played one of them, so I've only played Terra Mystica, so obviously I will be voting for that one. But yeah, I don't really know the mechanical differences between the two. Um, so I'm not sure if it will just come down to what setting or what theme you like more. I don't know. What do you think, Mackenzie? What would you vote for, and why do you think the reasons for that would be?
Okay, so you gotta play Gaia Project because it is just clearly better than Terra Mystica. It
Okay.
takes the whole system of Terra Mystica, but it also integrates things in an extremely clever way. It does this with this technology board. And so the technology board takes the cult tracks from the original game and it ties everything to it. I love it. It takes all of your terraforming ability, it takes your range, it takes everything and sticks it onto the cult tracks. So not only are you just moving up these, the cult tracks that gave you bonuses, but it's tied to everything, including the chips, and those are also randomized. So that's like the biggest change, is that tech board. And then the other big change is they introduce a new mechanism in the form of Gaia forming that allows you to do a lot of weird and cool things with the different player abilities. So there are these planets, these transdim planets that are on the board, and they have to be Gaia formed in order to settle on. So it's a new way to terraform things. which allows for a lot of flexibility and freedom in the design of the different aliens, the different faction abilities, which I think is really cool. So right off the bat, I think that is huge because particularly the technology board, but the games are so similar that if you like one, you're going to like the other, and the improvements that the latter makes is just so good. My wife calls me crazy because she saw what the question was today, and she's like, I know what you're going to answer, but you're wrong. She's in your camp, actually. She really likes Terra Mystica over Gaia Project, but I think that's because she learned that one first, and so
Right.
I think that she didn't really appreciate or like the changes. She says that we've played it a couple more times now, and the last time we played, she crushed us in Gaia Project. So I think she is understanding the system a bit more and understanding how the changes have affected the overall gameplay. Because now that all of these changes are randomized from the setup even more with the introduction of the technology track, that initial setup and your initial draft and placement is even more critical. You have to really consider where you're going to be, your starting position, in tandem with the round scoring objectives and the faction that you choose. So it's definitely has more of that, but in return, you have a lot more interesting things that can happen as a result. So I love that. It makes my brain work as a natural evolution of Terra Mystica, but I think that Terra Mystica is probably the more approachable one.
Okay. And so just on what you said there, so do you think that Gaia Project has more potential to kind of, or if you do that initial setup, maybe not so well, you can kind of be at a massive disadvantage from the get-go?
I feel like you're probably going to be, if you haven't set yourself up well in any game like this, you're probably not going to do extremely well points wise. But I think you always will have the opportunity to do well based on the actions that you're doing and just that feeling of doing well. So I think you'll still have that satisfying engine building, but you might not necessarily have that huge, like, oh yeah, I'm going to crush these guys kind of feeling, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You'll still have that satisfying feeling of crawling up tracks and getting bonuses and whatnot. But I think Terra Mystica itself also falls into that camp where if you play with people who are really good at Terra Mystica, you're going to get destroyed. Like
Yeah.
I think both of these games are like that, where that first turn is so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't deny that. So yeah, obviously mine will be a very biased answer anyway. You're much more well-rounded because you've played them both. I haven't played them both, but I'm sure most people who've probably played one have maybe played the other because normally people tend to like these games. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what the outcome is. What do you think the result will be?
That's a good question. Probably Terra Mystica, because I think more people have played that, especially in our demographic and age range. Just because that one has come out first. But I think that if you've played Gaia Projects, you've probably also played Terra Mystica.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gaia Project just seems like a natural expansion and evolution of the game. If you like one, you're gonna like the other. In my opinion, you're gonna like exploring the system. So I don't know. I think it could go either way. So
Okay.
I think that Gaia Project is the clear winner, though. I think it's
Yeah.
so good. Oh my gosh.
I think I think Gaia Project will win. But hey, who knows? We shall see. We'll put it out there and we can talk about it next episode. So yeah, that's this or that. So be sure to vote on that poll, which I'll put out on my channel in probably the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for that one and make sure you get your vote in if you've played any of those games. And if you haven't played those games, maybe just which one you fancy the most, which one which one appeals to you the most. Okay, so let's move on to some mechanism appreciation. So this is where we talk about a particular game function, something physically, in fact, sorry, gameplay wise, which is in a particular game we like. So Mackenzie, what mechanism are you going to mention this episode?
All right, so my mechanism comes from the Tentacle die. So this is from the Eldritch expansion pack from Railroading Challenge. So I recently was on a plane trip. I took my mom to the Macy's Days Parade for Thanksgiving, and that was awesome. While on the plane, we had the opportunity to play a whole bunch of games of Railroading. So we just started churning through expansions, and this is one that really stuck out to me as one that I really enjoyed. So if you're not familiar with Railroad Inc., the whole point is to connect all of your exits. And the more you connect, the more points you get. There's a multiplier based on how well you do. You're also trying to make the longest highway and road, and you're doing that through connecting and putting out these rail pieces. Now, most of the expansions for Railroad Inc. are just a single die, and that die adds a single mechanism. And this one is very clever. You roll the die, it has a number and a tentacle, and the number just represents how long your tentacle has to be. You don't have to put the tentacle on the board, but you want to because each of them is worth points. And I love this because when you put the tentacle on the board, you can no longer ever draw on that space. So it gives a roadblock. However, if you draw the tentacle so that it's overlapping other things, you're going to get extra points. And I love that system because not only are you kind of taking this risk and putting yourself in a box by drawing these early, but if you're able to put your rails and weird curving paths that you might not normally do, you're going to score even more points for putting out these tentacles. I love this expansion. I think it's super, super cool, super easy to integrate. Like I said, it's just a die that you add to and you roll with everything else. Oh my gosh, I love it. It has you almost, it's like pushing your luck, right? Like this is something that you're putting yourself in a terrible position for more scoring. I love it. I love that tension. Love that choice. Fantastic.
Yeah, I tend to like that concept as well. I haven't played Railroad Ink at all actually, and I didn't even know this particular module existed. So it's quite funny when you see it drawn out with a tentacle on the board.
It's so
But
funny.
yeah,
Like go ahead.
I was gonna say, is this game up there with the best roll and write? Because I've heard it's a really good one.
So I honestly was not impressed at all with the first two, with the blue one or the red one. I thought they were fine, nothing special. But the new ones, the Challenge Edition, I think are actually pretty fantastic. Like I was really surprised how much fun I was having with it because I just didn't really care for the first one so much that I went back and got the old ones just for the expansion dice, as well as got like the rest of the collection because this was a game that we played consistently on our trip, and I was like, wow, this is kind of perfect for a small box game. It's deep, it's thoughtful. This might appear on my best solo games from 2021 that should be out later today. So keep that in mind. It's pretty great. I like this game. Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's pretty fun. Get the challenge edition if you can. Get the green one because apparently its expansions are better than yellows. But it's a blast. I really like the goal cards. It's going to push you into really interesting ways, and I love the dice that have been changed drastically. And I love how easy the expansions are to add. It's usually just a die, and you can mix and match expansions as you see fit, which is cool. So you can really ramp up the complexity if you'd like to.
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, the game I want to talk, or the mechanism I want to talk about, is something very subtle actually. And I sometimes think that these very subtle, simple rules are overlooked, and I do like a really good one when it's used correctly. Nothing major at all, nothing game breaking, but the game I want to talk about is from Point Salad. So Point Salad, a relatively successful game from a couple of years ago now. A very simple set collection game with a point salad, I suppose, scoring system where you're getting points for lots of different things. And basically, the idea is you're either collecting these veg, or you're collecting the kind of scoring cards, which will kind of combine with those cards and score points in different ways. But the mechanism in particular I want to talk about is the fact that once you take one of these scoring cards, you are not locked in to that card till the end of the game because these scoring cards often conflict with each other. Some might say, score 3 points for every carrot, and then another card might say, well, lose 2 points for every carrot. But if you want to start, changing your strategy, you can actually choose to flip that scoring card over and use it for the vegetable itself. And for me, I just think that's such a small little rule that actually helps the game quite a bit. It stops you being so kind of, again, backed into a corner, and just gives you that flexibility to, zig and zag when you need to. And again, it doesn't slow the game down at all. It's a very simple rule to explain, and it's just, everyone's going to get it. And I just love that extra layer of flexibility you can have. So very simple rule there, but I do think it helps the game tick along nicely. So yeah, that is the card ability in Point Salad.
I think you nailed it on the head here. It's so easy to implement, and it was really really cool. I actually played this game last week with a bunch of kids, and they loved it. And it was really funny because they noticed that, oh, this shows what's on the back of the card, and I was like, yeah, exactly. So you can kind of plan for it. And they're like, can we flip them back? Because sometimes kids would have vegetables, and they would look at the scoring on the backside, and they were like, can I flip it the other way? And I was like, no, it doesn't work like that. It was really funny. They were all trying to just get all the points possible. It's clever. It's really well done.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a pretty good game actually. One I was very lukewarm in it to start with. I thought it was okay, but the more I play with it, the more I like it. I think it's a pretty good game. So
guess what
yeah,
year that came out?
2019.
2019, baby. That's right.
Yeah.
Best
We
year.
were
Best
talking,
year gaming.
yeah, we were talking about just before the show. We were talking about how so many good games came out in 2019. All right, cool. So that is Mechanism Appreciation. So the next segment is everybody's favorite with the random game generator. So this is a feature where we use the Board Game Geek random game generator and see what we come out with and discuss, if we can discuss, what the result is. So let's get ready to press. I'll press it now because it takes a little bit of time on my computer to come through. But any thoughts, Mackenzie? What we're going to get?
Something that we actually know about.
Okay, I'm going to go something with no owners at all. So something. Oh, oh no, this has definitely got some owners. Oh, 1974. Okay, this is the Revolution game. 4.5 out of 10.
A timeless classic.
1974. Yeah, absolutely. Uncredited designer.
Hmm.
Comments here, which we'll have to talk about later. But let's just read the little blurb here. So it says players master important information about historical events and geographic information pertaining to the American Revolution using cards and a map to match events and locations. So it's a part trivia game and a part history challenge. So there we go. Looks like you are trying to find stuff on a map where certain things happened, maybe that kind of thing. I imagine your American history is better than my American history, Mackenzie.
I used to teach American history for a while, actually, back in Hawaii. So this is a subject. I'm something of a historian myself. What can I say? But this
Brilliant.
game looks awful. I don't really like trivia games, and I think you'd probably be awful at this. I'd love to see you
So,
try to play an American history game. I think that'd be pretty entertaining. Do you know anything about American history? Like, would this be one that you'd be able to even try to attempt at? What do they teach you about this in school? Is that something that's covered?
uh,
Do you know my history?
very, very bare bones, I suppose. I suppose probably the same as you know about British history. I don't really. Yeah, we don't really go into too much detail on it, but I suppose you just pick things up through, I suppose, the media and stuff. But yeah, I'd be willing to try it. I always like learning stuff.
Okay.
I'll read. I'll read a little comment here from one of the reviewers. It says, "Pick cards off a stack, answer questions about geography or major battles of the American Revolutionary War. Okay, it might work as a learning aid, but the teacher will have to review the material because of the poorly done map." Oh, there we go. So it might not even be accurate, which is not one from a trivia game.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at these cards. These are hard, dude. It's just like it's locations, and then on the back it has like the name of a battle or something important. So this is rough. This is like a bad test. Like this is I would oh man, I don't think this is a good way to approach a trivia game at all. I think they nailed it on the head there. Like you're gonna need a study guide before you play this game. Oof. Good
Well,
luck, my
there you go.
man.
Well,
Ouch.
it's a pretty detailed map there as well. Well, there we go. So maybe it's one if
Free
you're really interested
poster.
in. Is that? Oh wow. Okay.
Oh, value. Find a copy.
Historical battle map, a value of $5. That's fantastic. Well, there we go. So if you're particularly interested in the American Revolutionary War and you want some maybe facts that aren't necessarily facts, then maybe just want to look. There you go.
Sorry, there's no
Interesting one.
listings found on the geek market. Can't get a copy. This will have to be
Oh
one
dear.
that you go thrifting for.
Oh well, there we go. Revolutionary game or revolution game. Oh, I thought that was quite interesting. That one.
It was fun.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on then to why is this in your collection? So, Mackenzie, do you want to go first or second on this one?
I have a game for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, tell me, Mr. Solo Gamer, why do you own this game in your collection, Mr. Cabbage Head's Garden? So, I know that you aren't the biggest solo gamer, but I know that this one is kind of a weird devices solo game. So, I'd love to hear why you have this. This is a solo game. I am a solo gamer. I play a lot of solo games, but I don't own this. So I want to know, is it actually worth keeping? And why do you have it if you don't even play solo games? Hmm?
Okay, so I very rarely play solo games, but sometimes I do, but not very often. And if I do, normally I'll play maybe something a bit more involved than this one. But I don't know, maybe I had a bit of a wild moment where I thought I saw this on Kickstarter the second go round. I think it's had a couple of prints
Hmm.
now. And I thought, you know what, I'd heard some good things about it. I love the artwork of it, and I'm not. It's a really quirky looking game. And I thought, you know, maybe if I ever am in a time where I just have a little bit of time to burn, then I'll get this one out onto the table because it's a very puzzly game. It's a game where you're kind of arranging your little patch, I suppose, and putting things in different orders, getting points in different ways. And it's actually decent. It's a decent game. I don't think it's massively, it's not a sprawling game. It's a very tight, concise little game. But I actually quite like the some of the different systems in this game where you are basically have I think it's three different cards, 3 cards available to you, and if you take from one end, you have to spend bees, and on the other end, you have to like take bees, and so it's a balancing act. So you can't always just take the cards you exactly want, and then you are building this big grid of cards, trying to I think place vegetables next to each other where you get a certain amount of points. And I think my favorite bit about this game is these neighbor cards. So you've got all these kind of nosy neighbors who come in and tink or kind of mess with your garden when you're away, and that can really kind of make you overcome these obstacles and can mess things up for you, which you wouldn't really want. I've only played this one. I think I've only played this one once actually, and or maybe twice, and I liked it. Again, there's a lot of games like this out there, these puzzly style games where you're trying to put things in order. But this one, as a solo game, I think it works pretty well. You get played in about 15 minutes. So again, if I ever want that very short little quiet time, get a game out in very little setup, get it played in again 15 minutes to waste some time. This is a good option, and I think it's good, and I think a lot of people could like it. Very family friendly. I've not played the two-player game yet, but I know it's tailored more towards solo gamers. But it's okay. It is what it is. I don't know if it'll stay around long term in my collection, but I want to play it some more. But that's all I can say really. I can't really explain. Maybe I just had a bit of a change of mind and picked this one up maybe out of FOMO or something because I wanted to try it, and I know a lot of people are always after it. So yeah, that's Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden.
A ringing endorsement. I've played it once. It's okay. I do have to say the artwork is great. I do like the
Yeah,
idea of neighbors, the nosy neighbors. That's really fun. Did you get the
yeah.
deluxe edition with all the little add-ons and whatnot?
No, I didn't. I think I
Oh,
just got
that's
the,
right.
the,
That's right. That's right.
the
That's right.
standard
You don't
one.
do that.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. But yeah, I think I got because I pretty much knew that I wouldn't play it
Mm,
all the time,
that makes
very
sense. Get
regularly.
it for what you expect you're actually going to use it for. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think it'll hold its value. So if I do want to move it on, I can probably get my money back
Yeah.
from it. So, but yeah, it is what it is. Very small filler. So
Would
nothing,
you
nothing.
recommend it to me if this is one that I should go seek out and play?
Um, I don't think I'd feel. No, I wouldn't feel really strong to recommend it. I like to
Okay.
really love a game to recommend it, but this one
Okay.
borderline. I wouldn't not recommend it, but I wouldn't particularly, you know,
You're so
evangelize
helpful.
it. Yeah, yeah. Like
All
Mr.
right.
Mr.
What you
Cabbage.
got for me, Dan? Bring it on.
Okay, I have a game. To be honest, I didn't know what to make about this one because I played the original a hell of a lot of times, and I know this is a twist on the original. Is the Infinity Gauntlet version of Love Letter.
Hmm.
Um, what are your thoughts on this one? Is this much different to the original? I know it's a one versus all variant on it. How does that work in practice? Is it better than the original Love Letter?
So I think that this is the best love letter, period, because of the twist on the game. So as you described, this is Infinity Gauntlet. It is Thanos versus the Avengers, and the way it works is you have an asymmetrical game going on, but the abilities are very similar in the way they work. You have the spy cards and this normal love letter where you call cards and try to get them out of the hand, but the whole idea is you're trying to reduce the health of the other player. So once somebody calls you, you're not out, right? You keep on going, but you have a certain amount of life. And so it's either the heroes trying to take out Thanos' life or it's Thanos trying to take out the heroes. But the cool thing is Thanos' win condition. He has two. He has either reduce the enemy's life or he can collect all of the Infinity Stones and snap his fingers and win. And this is such a cool concept. And my favorite part about this game are the Infinity Stones. They are takes on the cards that already exist in the game. So all of the ones are spies, right? You'll call somebody, you'll say, hey, do you have this number in your hand? Discard it. The one Infinity Stone, though, does that ability, but it like kills everybody's hand of cards, all of the enemy's hands of cards. And I think that's so neat because it's like a widespread board wipe. And I think that's awesome. Each of the stones is just a better version of the card. And the other cool thing about the stones is
Right.
once they're played, you've collected that stone. So you're trying to play these stones so that way they don't get shuffled back into your deck whenever they're called by the opponents. And you're able to really consistently use these powers and you're going to try to use them. And it's a lot of fun when you do so. And it's so neat. I love that there's just so many different takes on these cards. And it's just like a natural evolution and progression of the power level. But it makes sense because Thanos' deck is so powerful, but the heroes get more turns. And that's kind of the balancing factor here. And I really like that in this game. My only criticism with this game and with regular Love Letter as well is your turns seem very scripted. You kind of know what you're doing every turn. You don't really have that many options. And so that's kind of my criticism with Love Letter as a whole. But I do like the way that the Thanos player has a bigger hand size, actually. So they're going to have 3 cards that they pick from as opposed to 2. And then the hero players also will play cards to set up one another. And so it feels good to set up your partner for combos. So interesting game. It's one that I enjoy. My favorite Love Letter is not my favorite game ever, but I think that this version is the best version of it. So I really like this one. I think it's great. Thing works, and the Infinity Stones are a lot of fun. It feels really satisfying to snap your fingers once you collect them all. So good.
And is it more fun to play as Thanos or as one of the Avengers?
You got to be Thanos, man. It's so fun. But actually, I think it's fun both because you can be the heroes, right? The heroes are fun, and when you be Thanos as the heroes, you feel real good about it. It's awesome.
Okay, cool. And once you've played those Infinity Stones, is it locked in, or can you still take them once they're public?
So once an Infinity Stone is played, you can't use it again, but it counts as being out of your deck. And once you have all the Infinity Stones played or in your hand, then you win. So it's really cool because you are trying to make sure that you get to play them. But by playing your stones, it kind of shows what else is in your hand, right? So it's kind of it's interesting because you don't want to give too much information, but you also want to use these powerful cards. It's interesting. I really like it. I think it's really well done.
I want to try it.
Good choice.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by it. A bit burnt out with Love Letter, the standard version, but yeah, certainly one that's piqued my interest. I want to give it a go, but yeah, we'll see. Okay. So moving on to, I suppose, the final segment of the episode. This is the A to Z segment where we talk about a relatively light game and a more involved game from a particular letter. And I believe we are all the way to O on this episode. So, Mackenzie, what is your first game, the lighter game for the letter O?
All right, so this is One Night Ultimate Werewolf, a social deduction game that is distilled down to 6 minutes. I love that. Right off the bat, that concept, amazing. If you've played the original Ultimate Werewolf, it takes a very long time. It has player elimination, and it's a lot of just guessing and trying to accuse people just kind of randomly during those starting rounds. This game in particular is not necessarily a pure social deduction game. It's more of a puzzle. You start the game with these different roles that you know exist in the game. There's going to be enough for each player plus 3. And then it's up to you to suss out who has what role and to try to determine that information. Some of the roles allow you to switch. There are some that are going to be on the werewolf team, the bad guys, some that are the good guys. And it's up to you to just know about kind of like your position in the game and try to figure out who has these roles, how they could have affected everybody, and try to follow the trail of clues to determine which roles are at each player. So it's a really interesting, weird take on social deduction where it's like a group think puzzle. But obviously you have people that are going to be lying, but because they know of those puzzle pieces as well, they have actual things that they can lie about. They can claim that there's specific roles in the game. They can claim that certain things happen. It is so interesting, and I think that it works extremely well. So I really like this. It makes sense to me, and it's so good. I love how short and smooth it is. There's an app, and this is great app integration that will play as the narrator for you, so you don't actually need to have anybody sitting out and running things, and it just works seamlessly. The components are fine. They're nice, chunky cardboard bits, and the roles are also interesting and fun. You have the werewolf roles that are obviously just the bad guys. You have the villagers that don't do anything, but then you have all these other characters. One of my favorites is the drunk. The drunk's role is at the end of the night, the drunk wakes up and doesn't know what happened. He switches his card with something in the middle. And I just think that cracks me up because that could really throw a wrench in his specific plans, or people can claim that they're the drunk just so that they can get out of kind of whatever they're working on. And I think it's just so funny. And I love the way that you kind of work backwards to try to find a solution in this game. It works extremely well, one that I really enjoy. And there's so many different variants. You can play like an alien, a superhero version. you can play anything. Have you played this? Is this one you like?
It's probably one of my most played games of all time. I've probably played this at least 100 times. Um, yeah, I like it. I like it. I mean, I got a bit burnt out on it, but I haven't played it for quite a while now. So, but yeah, I've had some really good times with this one um, over the years, and I absolutely hate the drunk card. That's my least favorite one. I, I really like the or I like the kind of the seer. I like the masons. The masons ones I like when they can see each other. Yeah, I like that one. But yeah, it's a really good social deduction game. One for, as I said, 5-10 minutes each game. You're never going to play this just once. And I think the more you know how the roles work with each other, you can start to make some really good deductions. And with the same group, you're going to have to be a really good liar to get away with it. So yeah, fun game, fun game. Okay, so my lighter game is one that I think should be way more popular than what it is. Probably talked about it quite a bit. This is a game called Ohanami. One of the best filler games I think I played in several years. Up there with the best anyway. This is a very, very simple deck collection. But you're drafting these cards purely based on these numbers and symbols, and the symbols are going to score in different ways. You've got 3 different types of symbols. One's going to score in the first round, one's and second. Sorry, one's going to score in every round. One's going to score in only the second and third round, and one's only going to score in the third round in more kind of a sliding scale bonus. But this is just a pass and draft style game. But when you take these cards, you are have to consider not only the symbols you want, but also the numbers you want, because all these cards has an individual number on it, and you're placing these cards in 3 different columns. And whenever you place one of these cards, you can only place future cards higher or lower, or sorry, higher than the highest or lower than the lowest. And of course, that means that the more you play these cards, gaps are going to come in between these numbers, and you're not going to be able to fill in those gaps with future cards. So you're constantly squeezing your margins down on when you can play these cards. And it works so brilliantly. The game, or the kind of the arc of the game, really does ramp up in its kind of tenseness towards the end, as you want to make sure you don't want to waste a single. Make sure you can play everything, because points, points are going to be the end game here. But yeah, it just works so well. And when you end up getting these big drops, when you see here, this player's got 104, and the next lowest one's down 63. That can be a really horrible moment, because you want to keep those gaps as small as possible to give you more flexibility going forward. This game is an absolute joy to play. It's so much fun. One of the games I'll play anytime, anywhere. Never would turn a game down to this one. And it's up there with the best of the old kind of classic fillers. Your Colorettos, your 6 nymphs. This one is as good as those ones, in my opinion. So that is Ohanami. I think this is almost an essential for me.
This is a great pick. We recently got rid of the game because there's no reason to own it. Like this game is clearly better. I think you nailed it on the head here. I love the drafting in this. I love how you have to make those decisions of scoring points or keeping things nice and organized. So I really like this one here. Great pick.
There we go. That is Ohanami. So what's your more involved?
All right, more involved game for O here is one that I don't talk about enough, but I think is pretty well known. This is Obsession. So Obsession is a Victorian era game where you are doing your best to increase the nobility or the influence of your family by marrying off your children to one of the Fairchild children. So your whole goal is to basically create rooms in your estate that are going to draw in this family's children. It's like, oh, I heard that he really likes bowling. Let's make a bowling green. Or, oh, this dude, he loves books. Make a library stat. It's so funny because that's what you're doing. You're literally building rooms, and then you're inviting people to come into your rooms and actually do activities there. And it's such a funny system because on your turn, you pick a spot, you put people into that spot, guests, and then you have to bring in servants to actually serve food and actually run the whole thing. So for example, say you go to the tea room, you're going to need to bring your head housemaid as well as 4 people to have tea together. And then when you do, not only do you activate the effects of all of the people that you brought in, but also the effect of the room. And so it's a very weird game of just like lots of stuff. So on your turn, you're playing like 6 cards or 4 cards, and then you're activating a building. You're just getting so many bonuses. And I think that's probably the biggest draw in this game, and is what makes it feel so good, is on your turn, you're getting like 8 abilities. They're all small, but they all add up, and it feels real good when you do so. In addition, every time you visit a room, it flips. And so generally, it's going to be worth more points on its flip side, or it's going to give you some other special ability, or it even gives you a stronger room that you could use in the future. So it's got a cool way of encouraging you to use different tiles because you want all those different points. I really like the system here. I love the different visitor cards here. There's a lot of luck and randomness in this game because you're going to be adding new visitors to your hand, but the new expansion does some really cool things about mitigating this. So really like this one. It's one that I'm really enjoying, and I think the theme is spot on here, and it's just really satisfying to play a grip of cards and get a grip of bonuses. Feels fantastic. So that's Obsession, my big game.
Okay, cool. There's one that I still haven't made my mind up on. I don't know what I think of it. I want to play it just to see what it's about because I know the people who like it really like it. But something's stopping me from picking it up. But interested. I'm interested, and I don't know. I can't quite make my mind up on it. That's yeah. But I know you like it, which is yeah, which is again another kind of praise for the game. But yeah, not quite sure. Not quite sure what to make of it. Jiri has just asked a question to us saying, do I prefer Ohanami or do
Mm.
we prefer Ohanami over Sushi Go? Oh, 100%. Not even close for me. Yeah, much better game. What about you, Mackenzie? Any
I
preference?
think I'd have to agree with you. I'd pick Ohanami over Sushi Go.
Yeah, yeah.
Sushi Go is
Right.
great. I'm not going to discredit Sushi Go. I love that game too. I love how simplistic it is, but I do like that tough decision in Ohanami. I feel like in Sushi Go sometimes the decision isn't as painful as I'd like, and when it comes to those small card games, I like having really hard decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. Oh,
Nope. You okay?
oh yeah. Sorry, I've messed my computer up. Oh, there we go. It's fine. I just
Okay.
opened it
I
in
can
your
hear you good
window.
on this side.
Oh, you can hear me. I thought I closed my streaming box then. No, I had, thank God. Okay, so yeah, the game I want to talk about, my more involved game, is a game called Orleans. So this has been in my collection for a long, long time, and I still absolutely love this game. So this is, I suppose, is it the only or one of only a few, which I'm surprised, bag building game. So this is a game where you are basically collecting these tokens, and these tokens are going to be basically how you take your actions in the game, and they're going to basically let you get upgrades and let you score different ways. And you're basically collecting more of these tokens, putting them into your bag, drawing them out, and putting them on these action spots, all with the idea of kind of increasing your engine. So some will let you do things such as make spots cheaper. Some will give you unique buildings that you can only get for yourself. Some of them will let you draw more tokens from the bag. Some will let you kind of get regular income or even cosplayers income from round to round. And it just is such a fun gameplay, really involved game, a lot going on here. But I love how simple it is to explain. Literally, just draw your tokens from the bag, allocate them to different spots, and take those actions. And it just works so well. I love the events. There's nothing about this game I don't like, to be honest. I think it's just brilliant. I do think, and I will very one of those people who will strongly advocate getting the expansion for this game. I think the expansion is pretty much essential. It's a must-have expansion to make the game or take the game to that next level. But with that, it's just such a fun play. One of the best modern Euros. I think it's brilliant. Thoughts on all the arms, Mackenzie? Have you played?
I have played Orleans. This is one thing that you mentioned already. I really like the event system. It's probably one of my favorite things that you have this thing that you got to prepare for, and it changes up the game every time. But one thing that I think is really special about Orleans is how well it does everything. It is one of those rare games that is solo, cooperative, and competitive, and works at all those counts. It does require you to have some of the expansions, but they're really well done. My favorite way to play this game is actually in the cooperative setting. I like how you have your own personal goal in addition to everything else, and how you're building towards something. It's the way that I normally do play this game, but I really like the system that it has, and I do like that innovation on that bag building mechanism. And I think you're right. I think including that trade and intrigue expansion is pretty critical for that new board. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes that decision of is now the time to start getting rid of my tokens, the best time,
Hmm.
because again, that lure, that fish hook is there a lot stronger with the expansion than it is in the base game. But I haven't tried the cooperative one, but I'd really be interested to try that one because I heard it is pretty great. But yeah, not tried that one yet because to be honest, I'm not even slightly tired of the other one. So brilliant game, absolutely brilliant, and I love it. So yeah, that is all on. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps up everything for this episode. So yeah, before we move on or conclude the episode, is there any games you are looking to play before the next one, Kenzie? Anything hot coming in?
So we have a couple of hot games coming in. So first off, the reprint of Glass Road should be here, which is exciting.
Oh yeah.
I hear that game is really good, so I want to give it a try. Super excited. The other things that are coming in, we have Ascension Tactics, so the deck building tactical miniatures game. It looks like it's just a way better version of Ignite, which is also a deck building miniatures game. So those two I know for sure are coming in right now. And then our copy of Glory to Rome is going to be here, hopefully by the end of this week. So hopefully can put that in my bag and take it with for holiday season so that I can get a lot of that played. So super excited to try all these things. But out of all three of those, I'm actually really looking forward to Ascension Tactics, actually. I like the Ascension system, the world, and I'm curious to see their take on this miniatures interactive game. So I like the style. Let's see how it plays out. How about yourself?
Oh, brilliant. So hopefully trying to get some more Curious Cargo play to make my mind up on that one. I think some bigger games have just about been delivered in the UK. So I think Arc Nova is due to be stocked very soon. So hopefully I can get a copy of that one. And maybe some games that have been sat on my shelf for a while. Goa, I really want to get Goa played. I haven't got around to it yet, despite despite really wanting to. So yeah, hopefully I'll get some of those bigger titles played. I've not been as good this month as I normally am getting new games played. I've been playing a lot of old favorites, so I need to quickly get some more new games in. But yeah, lots to be excited for. Yeah, always old and new.
Oh,
Lots of good games coming up.
I need to get Arc Nova, man. Like in the US, we still like Capstone Games is like just putting out Glass Road now. Like they just sent us our shipping stuff. So we still have which I'm actually the most excited for, the expansion to Maracaibo first, and then Arc Nova is after that. So I mean, I can't wait. That's what I'm most excited for, but I have no idea when that'll be here. The
Yeah.
Maracaibo expansion looks so good. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'd forgot about that one to be honest. But yeah, loads to look forward to, and sadly it doesn't. It's not all here straight away. You have to wait and wait and wait. But never
It's
mind.
fine. There's a million games. We'll be occupied. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
There
We'll
we
be
go.
excited when it comes.
That's true. That is true. Okay, I think that just about wraps everything up then. So thanks as always for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this installment of Corporate Cardboard. Always apologise when it's me at the helm because I'm a bit clunky when it comes to doing all the technical stuff. And apologies for the delay between now and the last episode because I'd not been very well. I've been a bit under the weather. And I think our schedules didn't quite line up as they normally do. But we got here in the end, and we'll always get it in when we can. But for everyone else, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Corporate Cardboard. And as always, be sure to check out Mackenzie's channel.
Thanks so much
Bye,
for
everybody.
watching. Side Game Strong, y'all.
Bye, everybody.